Hello, today I'm going to show you how we are going to seam the squares and triangles together for the vintage granny square dress. This is the first vintage pattern review that we're doing for the winter season, and this is the stock picture. This vintage pattern was purchased on the VintageBeso Etsy shop for $105. She also has a website, VintageBeso.com, and the dress is the same price on both platforms. So, if you are following along or you've decided that you'd like to follow along, I will link those the website and the Etsy shop listing for you to purchase. 105 is really good. I frequent her shop quite a bit because not only does she have really good prices on the vintage patterns, but she also has a really good collection of items, or at least I think it's a good collection of items. They're obviously the ones that I like my style. So on to the seaming. You are going to need your squares, triangles, a needle to thread, coordinating yarn, and of course, scissors. So let's get started. Okay, so those of you that have been following along know that I initially started making the smallest size on the pattern and decided after I did a try on that I wanted to do the medium size because it's going to give me, or at least I think it's going to give me, the fit that I'm looking for the dress. So this is the second time I've actually seamed these squares, and I wanted to show you how to do that because I did experience some puckering when I was seaming the squares and triangles together, and it was because I was seaming them incorrectly. I was doing it really late night and I was feeling rushed, and I was kind of watching TV, not paying attention. And I ended up having to redo it because I didn't seam them correctly. So this top one is already seamed to the pink, but it was too hard to see on screen. So I'm going to do the lighter, the sage and the pink to the pink. So if you're probably not doing two like me, but you're going to want to lay out your pattern before seaming it. So don't seam as you go. At least lay them out so that you know how you kind of want them to look. Because I played around with mine quite a bit before I got the configuration that I liked. So I've already decided this is my right facing side for my square and my triangle. So we want to place our right sides together. Notice that these are not, like, they don't match up like perfectly. So we're going to need to do corner to corner in order to seam them so they match up. And it's just pulling this triangle just slightly taut. And that was the case for both of my squares and triangles. So I don't think there was anything that I did wrong. It's just the way that they came out. You're going to have to hold them a little bit taut. Make sure that they're matched up. If you don't, you're going to get puckering. If you don't take your time, make sure you're lining them up, you will have puckering. So just word from somebody who did it already. So you're going to thread your needle, put your right sides facing. Just kind of a disclaimer, I'm left-handed, so if you're right-handed and you're watching this video, it might look a little bit backwards, but the idea is the same. So you're going to have your needle and you're going to go back and forth when you're threading, when you're seaming them together. So you like that, kind of like your needle's swimming between the seams. So, because I'm left-handed, I'm going to get it into position. This is the top. Let's see. This is the top of our stitch right here. We're going to go right through there, and I'm going to pick up both loops. Okay. Okay, I got myself twisted. Here we go. And this is the top of the chain corner for our square. And we're going to go right in the middle. I leave a little bit of a tail. Not crazy long, just a little bit. And as long as you're not pulling too tight, this tail will stay the same. And just pay attention to it. And if that happens, I just twist these between my fingers and then, whoops, re-thread the needle. I have like butterfingers today. I keep on dropping stuff. After you do a few seams, just make sure you're kind of lining it up. Through that one again. Just flipping it over to make sure. I know I move it around in my hands a lot. I'm trying to show you what I'm doing here as best I can. And notice I'm not going right here, which is in between the two stitches in the triangle. I'm going right there. I'm picking up a loop. This is a chain up stitch. I want to go through the actual stitch, not the space between the chain stitch and the double crochet. Okay, now we're at our corner. And I double back for the corner when I get to the corner. So I'm going to go under right there. I don't want to pull the stitch apart, so I'm kind of going into the stitch more so than this. And I'm just going to loop it through, and I let it go. I don't tie until I've got an idea of how they're looking together. So beautiful. So you see there is a little bit of puckering right here, but that's okay. You just don't want it to be like that, you know, where you're really got some gathering for your square. I think that no matter how you do it, you're going to have a little bit like this, which is okay, because when you're wearing your dress, it's going to be, you know, it's going to ease up a bit. So you have your top and your bottom. Get that a little bit more in frame for you. There you go. And then your next step is going to be to sew these, the next square. So what you can do is flip it over. Oh, sorry, I did that wrong. We want this side to go with this side, right? So like that. Corner to corner. Okay. So this is, again, we're going to have to be real careful to not get our puckering, and we're going to have to hold the triangle taut as we're seaming, but then that's going to be your next step. So we have these squares together. Now we're going to do this one, and you're just going to repeat that pattern. And word from somebody who messed it up the first time, just take your time in your seaming. Don't worry too much about these tiny little imperfections here up at the top. You see how it kind of, the triangle is kind of pulling, you know, that chain stitch. Even though we went into the right one, it's kind of pulling it over. Because remember, you're going to crochet right on top of these, and it's going to, you know, make it lay flat. So if you're a perfectionist and you're saying, oh my gosh, look at this, I did this slightly, whatever, I messed this up a little bit, you're going to crochet right on top of that. So don't get twisted about it. So that is how you seam your squares. And our next, I guess my next little update video, or maybe an update picture, since we're heading into the holiday, will be maybe a picture of me progressing through the body of the dress. I don't think I'm going to be doing a video, because you should be able to follow along with the pattern pretty easily from here on out. But I will make sure I'm posting progress pictures on Instagram. And my goal was to wear it for the holiday, but I think I might be pushing it a little bit. So maybe it'll be more of a Christmas dress than a Thanksgiving dress. But we shall see how quick I am with getting this dress crocheted. Once you get the seaming done, or at least in my opinion, once I got the seaming done for the first one and I started working on the body, it went pretty quickly, like row by row, just pretty quick. So I'm thinking that at least the torso portion of the dress will be pretty quick. And then when you have to split off to do your sleeves and your V-neck, maybe that gets a little tricky. But any part that I feel is a little tricky or maybe a little above a beginner, because the granny squares and stuff, those are pretty beginner patterns. And overall, I think this is pretty beginner friendly. I would say if it's your first garment, just be patient with yourself, take your time. But for a vintage pattern, the instructions are written pretty clearly, because sometimes they're not in a vintage pattern. But I think for this one, the instructions are pretty good. If you were determined to make your first garment and you were familiar with granny squares, familiar with double crochet, I think you could do it. So give yourself some patience if that's the situation you're in. And I will see you on Instagram with a few more status update pictures, I'll call them, I guess. And for now, have a nice weekend. Bye.